Welcome to Bedtime Stories. Part 1, The Dinner. Hey everyone. My name is Margaret. But everyone calls me Maggie. I am 67 years old, a retired elementary school teacher, and for 2 years, I was what my family called the ATM. It all started to change at a birthday dinner for my daughter-in-law, Jessica. It was at a very expensive restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the waiters have more degrees than the customers. The kind of place my monthly mortgage payments for my son and his wife had made possible. I remember I wore my best navy dress and the pearl necklace my late husband, Frank, gave me on our 25th anniversary. I arrived right on time. My son, David, stood up and gave me one of those quick hugs that feels more like an obligation than a greeting. He said, "Mom, you made it." And I said, "Of course I made it. It's Jessica's birthday." Jessica gave me a tight smile. She has never really warmed to me. I think she finds me too involved. Too opinionated. Just too much. The trouble really started when Jessica's sister, Karen, arrived with her husband and their twin daughters. The girls were about the same age as my granddaughter, Chloe, and they immediately started talking about their recent trip to Disney World. They talked about private school and designer clothes, all the things Jessica desperately wanted but couldn't quite afford on David's salary. You could see the jealousy on Jessica's face. It was as clear as day. Then Jessica said, "Girls, why don't you all sit together down at that end of the table?" She pointed to the chairs right next to me. That's when my 8-year-old granddaughter, Chloe, looked right at me. She rolled her eyes, a gesture she'd learned from her mother, and said, "You can't sit with us." She paused for effect, just like she'd been taught. "Mom says you're an old burden." The words didn't just hurt. They stole the air from my lungs. For a second, there was just silence. Then, there were uncomfortable chuckles from around the table. Karen's husband gave a weak laugh. But my son, David actually threw his head back and laughed. He shook his head, smiling, like it was the most adorable thing he'd ever heard. And Jessica, she just smirked behind her wine glass. She didn't deny it. She didn't scold Chloe. She just let those hateful words hang in the air between us, the truth finally spoken out loud. I looked at my son, laughing at my expense. I looked at my granddaughter, parroting her mother's cruelty. And in that moment, something inside me, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. I placed my napkin on the table very slowly, very deliberately. I stood up. My voice was steady, even though my hands were shaking. I said, "Well, I suppose I won't burden any of you with my presence any longer." David stopped laughing. He said, "Mom, come on. She's just being silly. She's a kid." I looked him dead in the eye. I asked him, is she? Or is she simply repeating what she hears at home every single day? No one had an answer for that. The table was completely quiet. I picked up my purse, and I walked out of that restaurant. I didn't look back. The drive home was the longest 30 minutes of my life. My mind was racing. 2 years. For 2 years, I had been paying their mortgage. $2,000 every single month. I had covered so-called emergencies, bought school clothes, paid for private school tuition, set up a vacation fund. I had done everything a parent could do to help. And what had it bought me? The title of Old Burden. The punchline to my family's private joke. That night, around 11 o'clock, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text message. From David. My heart actually leapt for a second. Maybe it was an apology. Maybe he was checking on me. I opened the message. It said, payment still due tomorrow. Jessica wants to confirm the transfer went through before the bank closes. I read those words over and over. No, I'm sorry. No, how are you? No mention of the horrible thing his daughter had said, or his own laughter. Just a demand for money. That text was a perfect, crystal clear summary of our entire relationship. I was not a mother. I was not a grandmother. I was a transaction. A direct deposit. I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling with a new kind of anger. Then I typed out my reply. 2 words. Just 2 words. I wrote, figure it out. And then I turned off my phone. I lay down in my dark, quiet bedroom, and for the first time in years, I slept a deep, peaceful sleep. Part 2, The Aftermath The next morning, I was woken not by my alarm, but by the constant buzzing of my phone. I made myself a pot of expensive coffee, the kind I usually save for holidays, and I sat at my kitchen table. I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I read them all while I ate my toast. Mom, please call me back. David. Margaret, there's been a huge misunderstanding. We need to talk. Jessica. Grandma, I'm sorry. Please call Dad. Chloe. A message clearly typed by Jessica. The panic was so thick you could taste it. The mortgage payment of $2,000 was due at 3 o'clock that afternoon. Without my contribution, they were $800 short. I knew this because I had secretly been looking at their bank statements for months. David's salary was more than enough to cover their basic needs. The extra money was for their lifestyle. For Jessica's pride. At 9:15, my doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw David's truck in my driveway. He was standing on my porch, shifting his weight from foot to foot, looking exactly like he did when he was 16 and had crashed my car. I opened the door with a smile. Morning, sweetheart. You're up early. He didn't even say hello. He pushed past me into the living room. Mom, what is going on? You didn't send the payment. No, I said, closing the door calmly. I didn't. Mom, it's due today. You know that. You've been doing it for 2 years. 24 payments, I said. $48,000, David. His face turned red. We've been over this. The business is slow. Is it? I asked, settling into my favorite armchair. Because your wife seemed very confident last night when she told our granddaughter that I am a burden. People who are a burden don't usually give away $48,000. She didn't mean it like that, he shouted. Oh, I think she meant it exactly like that, I said, my voice low and steady. And I think you agreed with her, considering how hard you laughed. He started to plead. Mom, look, we can talk about this later. Right now, I need you to go to the bank. Just make the transfer, and we'll figure everything else out after. The sheer nerve of it stunned me. No apology. No remorse. Just a command to keep the money flowing, no matter how they treated me. I looked at my son, this man I had raised, and I felt nothing but cold clarity. David, I said. Listen to me very carefully. I will never, ever make another mortgage payment for you. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. The Bank of Maggie is permanently closed. His face went white. All the bluster left him. We'll lose the house, he whispered. Then perhaps, I said, standing up, you should have thought about that before you taught your child to insult the person paying for it. I have things to do. You need to figure this out on your own. The begging started then. Real, desperate begging. He promised Jessica would apologize. He promised things would change. He even tried to get angry, to threaten me with estrangement. But it was like water off a duck's back. I had finally seen the truth. I did not owe them my money, or my self-respect. After he left, slamming the door, the silence in my house felt like a blessing. Part 3, The War The campaign to break me began almost immediately. They had 90 days before the bank would start foreclosure proceedings, and they used every second to try and break my will. First, it was the guilt. Jessica left sobbing voicemails about how the children would be traumatized, how they'd have to change schools. David showed up with fake crises, a broken water heater, a sick child, hoping to catch me in a moment of softness. Then they recruited others. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, came over for tea and said, "It's just so sad when money comes between a family." I told her, "This isn't about money, Helen. This is about respect. And that seems to be in very short supply." Chloe's teacher called me, her voice full of gentle concern. She said Chloe was telling classmates her mean grandmother was making them homeless. I explained, patiently, that Chloe's parents made over $80,000 a year and had chosen a house they couldn't afford. I am not making them homeless, I said. I am refusing to pay for their poor decisions. Then, my sister Patricia called from Seattle. Maggie, what has gotten into you? Frank would be rolling in his grave. I fired back. Frank would be horrified that his grandson lets his daughter call her grandmother a burden and finds it funny. Frank believed in respect. You should try it. But the real declaration of war came a month later. I got a call from a lawyer. Mrs. Sullivan, he said. My name is Robert Martinez. I represent your son, David. He is filing a petition for conservatorship. He believes you are no longer mentally competent to manage your finances. I almost dropped the phone. My own son was trying to have me declared senile. He was trying to have a court give him legal control over my money and my life because I had dared to say no. The audacity was breathtaking. After I hung up, I sat in Frank's old recliner and I didn't cry. I laughed. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. David had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I hired a lawyer named Sarah Blackwood. She was a shark who specialized in protecting older people from their own families. This is common, she told me. When the money stops, the manipulation turns legal. He can try to have you declared incompetent, but he'll need proof. And from where I'm sitting, you're one of the most competent people I've met. We didn't just prepare a defense. We prepared an attack. Sarah advised me to start recording all my conversations with David and Jessica. In my state, that was legal. So I did. The court hearing was a thing of beauty. David's young lawyer stood up and painted a picture of a confused, erratic old woman who had suddenly cut off her loving family. He called it evidence of cognitive decline. Then it was Sarah's turn. She presented my medical records, perfect health. She presented my financial records, impeccable. She showed the judge records of the $60,000 I'd given them. And then, she played the recordings. The courtroom heard David's voice, demanding money, threatening me. They heard Jessica's voice, clear as a bell on speakerphone, saying to a friend, "We just need to find another way to get money out of the old bat. Once we get the conservatorship, we'll have access to everything." You could have heard a pin drop. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Wells, looked at my son. "Mr. Sullivan," she said. "What possible context makes it appropriate to refer to your mother as the old bat while plotting to access her finances?" David had no answer. He just sat there, his mouth hanging open. The petition was denied. Not only that, Judge Wells referred the case to the district attorney for investigation of financial elder abuse. David's legal ambush had blown up in his face. As we walked out of the courthouse, I saw him and Jessica screaming at each other in the parking lot. Their perfect plan had failed. Part 4, The Abandonment. 3 weeks later, at 6 in the morning, my phone rang. It was my neighbor. Maggie, she whispered. There's a U-Haul truck in David's driveway. They're loading everything into it. I watched from my bedroom window. They were packing frantically. My phone rang again. It was David. Mom, he said, his voice falsely cheerful. We're moving to Phoenix. Jessica's sister is there, and there's more construction work. A fresh start. I see, I said. And, Mom, the kids are going to stay with you. Just for a little while. Until we get settled and find a good school district for them. It'll be easier for them. I was silent. I couldn't even find the words. After trying to steal my money and my freedom, they now wanted to abandon their children on my doorstep. David, I said slowly. You are not leaving your children with me. Mom, don't be difficult. We don't have a choice. We'll be sleeping on a couch. It's just more practical this way. You have a choice, I said, my voice icy. You take your children with you. You be parents. What you do not get to do is make your irresponsible decisions my new responsibility. An hour later, Jessica was at my door, her face puffy from crying. He owes money, Maggie. To dangerous people. We have to go now, and we can't take the kids to a homeless shelter. So, it wasn't a fresh start. It was a frantic escape. They were running from debt, probably from the law, and they saw their children as baggage. Jessica, I said. I will not take them. That is my final answer. You would let your own grandchildren go into foster care, she spat. You are letting your children go into foster care, I corrected her. You are making that choice. Not me. At noon, with a heavy heart, I picked up the phone. I called Child Protective Services. I reported that a mother and father were preparing to abandon their 2 minor children. I gave the address. Social workers were there within the hour. I watched from my window as official papers were handed over, as David and Jessica argued violently with the authorities. In the end, the social worker came to my door. Mrs. Sullivan, they say you are willing to take temporary custody. They are mistaken, I said firmly. I am not. I watched as Tyler, 12, and Chloe, 8, were led to a social worker's car with small backpacks. They looked over their shoulders at my house, their faces pale and terrified. My heart shattered into a million pieces. But taking them in then would have been rewarding their parents' abandonment. It would have taught them that Grandma would always clean up the mess, no matter how badly they behaved. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to let people face the consequences of their actions, even when it breaks your heart. David and Jessica drove away that evening. They didn't even hug their children goodbye. Tyler and Chloe were placed with a foster family, the Morrisons. I cried that night, harder than I had since Frank died. I wondered if I was a monster. *** Part 5, The Truth and the Trial *** 2 months later, Maria, the social worker, came to see me. She had news. David and Jessica never made it to Phoenix. They were arrested in Las Vegas. Their car was pulled over for a broken taillight, and it was filled with stolen construction equipment. My son's struggling business was actually a theft ring. My mortgage payments had been funding his criminal enterprise. Then Maria told me something else. In jail, facing decades in prison, David and Jessica had signed over their parental rights. Tyler and Chloe were now permanent wards of the state. Maria looked at me. As their closest relative, you would be the first choice for permanent custody, if you're interested. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. They tried to dump the kids on me as a temporary inconvenience. Now, the state was offering them to me forever. I went to visit the children at the Morrisons' home. They looked peaceful, healthier. Chloe ran and hugged me. "Grandma Maggie. It's so quiet here. I'm not scared anymore." Tyler told me he'd overheard his dad talking about changing serial numbers, but his mom told him to never, ever talk about it. They were safe. They were calm. They deserved a forever home. I knew what I had to do. I called Sarah Blackwood again. "I want to file for permanent custody of my grandchildren. Maggie, you're 67. It's a huge undertaking. Those children have been failed by every adult in their life," I said. "Including me, when I said no, I will not fail them again." But first, there was the federal criminal trial. And David, in a final, breathtaking act of betrayal, had told the prosecutors that I was involved. He said I knew about the thefts, that I was the mastermind, using the mortgage payments to launder his stolen money. He was willing to send his own mother to prison to get a shorter sentence. Standing in the witness box, looking at my son in his orange jumpsuit, I felt nothing. No love, no hate. Just a hollow distance. The prosecutor asked if I knew about the crimes. "Absolutely not," I said. David's lawyer tried to trip me up. "You never asked questions, did you? You just gave him money." "Actually," I said, pulling a file from my bag. 2 months before the birthday dinner, I got suspicious. I hired a private investigator. The courtroom went quiet. His report showed my money wasn't going to the mortgage. It was going to storage units, cash withdrawals, and strange business accounts. I was preparing to confront David when Chloe called me a burden. That was the final piece of the puzzle. It was checkmate. My own due diligence proved I was a victim, not a co-conspirator. Then, Tyler testified. My brave, 13-year-old grandson told the court exactly what he heard in the garage. The jury believed him. David was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Jessica got 12. As he was led away, he didn't look at me. *** Part 6, A New Beginning ***. After the trial, another lawyer contacted me. His name was Marcus Webb. He represented the victims of David's theft ring. Mrs. Sullivan, he said. During the asset investigation, we found something else. Your son also committed extensive identity theft. Against you. He showed me documents. Loans, credit lines, business accounts, all in my name, with my social security number. David had used my pristine credit to finance his scams. He'd hidden nearly $2 million in offshore accounts, money for his life after prison. As a victim of his identity theft, Marcus explained, you have a claim to those assets as restitution. I thought about it. I thought about Tyler and Chloe's future. I thought about the elderly couples David had swindled. I want half, I said. For my grandchildren's education and security. The other half should be divided among his other victims. 6 months later, the paperwork was done. I was granted permanent legal custody of Tyler and Chloe. And a check for $900,000 arrived in the mail. The day they moved in, we painted their rooms. Blue for Tyler, with bookshelves for his novels. Pink and yellow for Chloe, with an easel for her art. Our first Christmas, as we sat by the tree, Chloe looked up at me. Grandma Maggie, she asked. Is it okay if we call you Mom? It's just easier at school. I pulled them both into a hug. I would be honored, I whispered. Today, our house is full of noise. The good kind. Homework questions, piano practice, the sound of kids playing in the garden Frank planted. Tyler is talking about college. Chloe is learning the same songs I played as a girl. People ask me if I'm angry. If I'm bitter. I'm not. I'm grateful. That terrible dinner, those cruel words, they were a gift. They were the shock I needed to wake up. To see that I was funding my own disrespect. The old burden turned out to be the strongest person in the room. I learned that no is a complete sentence. That respect isn't given with birth, it's earned with action. And that sometimes, the family you choose, the family you fight for, is the one that matters most. David thought he was punishing me by cutting me out. Instead, he freed me. He gave me back my life, and he gave me my true family. And for that, in the strangest way, I thank him. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your story in the comments below. Your strength matters.